everyone, and we are back here for On the Clock with Doc once again at Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. Of course, I'm your host, Dan Tortora of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We have Dr. Marc Pietropaoli here, and we have Taryn Bader as our special guest today, and Taryn's story in connection with Doc, and just talking about in this community of Central and Upstate New York, how people are working tirelessly to help each and every single one of us. So I'm very honored to have both Doc with us and Taryn. And Taryn, welcome to the show, and thank you for being here for the first time.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. So you and I spoke off the air about this, but you first kind of came into connection with Doc from tearing your ACL when you were 16, junior in your state games. And I think there was 5 minutes left in the game when it happened, and I know that the team ended up losing the game. Bring me into kind of that moment for you, and probably a scary moment as well.
Yeah, I mean, when it happened, I honestly had no idea what had happened. And so we went to, the local hospital, and they said, oh, you just sprained your knee. And it was the next day, and I was messing around, and I did like some weird little kick, and my whole knee shifted, and I fell. And I said to my parents, I don't think this is normal. So they reached out to a friend they had from church who actually worked for Dr. Pietropaoli at the time, and she suggested that I come in and see him here, and I did, and lo and behold, it was the ACL. And at that point in time, I mean, I feel like there was some conversation around it in terms of, it's not necessarily career ending, but it is something you have to come back from. So that part was a little scary, but fortunately, like you mentioned, it was the last game of the season. We were done. So I knew I had plenty of time to kind of get back and where I wanted to be.
And Doc, I know that surgery was something that had to happen in this case. There's a beautiful story that comes out of this, but when you first met Taryn, kind of bring me into that.
Well, she was a smiley, young, disappointed athlete at the time, but very pleasant and polite, as she still is. And that story that she told is pretty common. Like, we hear someone gets hurt, they go to the ER, they're told they have a sprain, and sometimes people ignore that and they try to go out and play or do something, and then unfortunately the knee gives out. And it's also a lot more common injury we see in females. We can get into that as well. Taryn can get into that as well. But it's a tough conversation. Luckily with her, it was a little easier, maybe because it was the end of the season and she had a year to get better. But you can never, not knowing the future, it's always a hard conversation because people just don't know what's ahead of them, and they're afraid. And it's not just a physical injury, it's a mental injury. And for the parents too, for that matter, they put so much time and energy. Usually some of the parents have coached, and it's tough. So you got to deal not just with the physical part, which I think a lot of the athletes deal better with. It's the mental part that's the harder part. So.
For sure.
And Taryn, you came back from that, and not only did you come back from a torn ACL, but you went to the state championship and won it as a senior. So just speak to obviously going through the surgery, having Doc here for you and the team here for you, and just what that meant to you, because what came out of it was something truly remarkable, and rising through adversity at its finest.
Yeah, I would. I mean, obviously one person doesn't win a state tournament, right? So it was a whole team effort. And we were a great group of girls. We had played together for a long time, and so kind of having my senior year culminate like that was absolutely amazing. And then I mean, the team here, Doc, was very supportive. I remember the room I was in, and he told me there was a girl who got back in 3.5 months. And so my parents being
your picture's in that room, by the way. We should have. We'll have to somehow get you to put that picture. But it's pure joy. But yeah, your picture's in that room.
It was my parents. I remember them saying, "Okay, well, she did it in 3.5 months, so it can be done. So figure it out and get back." And I know in about 5 months I was playing softball again, and then was cleared for the spring season. So it was great. I remember the first game getting back out there, and it was like an injured bird, and you would just set it free because I was like, I can run, and it was amazing. And obviously they left a strong impression on me because I came back for round 2 in my senior year of college for the other side, and yeah, because I mean, I knew the quality of care that I would receive here, and so I was not willing, and I was out in Rochester. I mean, they wanted me to go out there with the doctors they were familiar with, and I said no, that I wanted to come back here.
You know, and that's something we spoke about before is, you know, it takes me like 45 minutes, almost an hour to come out here, but it's how you're treated and it's the
Right.
care that you have that goes a long way, and you've spoken to that, and as Doc said, and you just alluded to, tearing your other ACL and how in females it's more common, and I feel like that's something that needs to get out there too to people that, you know, it does happen and it is more common in females.
Yeah, I mean, both of mine, unfortunately, were contact injuries, so who knows how much of that could have been prevented, but there are a lot of really great prevention things, and I've seen it with my own athletes. You know, you really need to control certain movements in the body, and I have kids come in for knee. I've got a little girl right now, knee pain, and I had her jump for me, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, she is, I mean, it's just a ticking time bomb, really.
And, you know, when you hear ACL, I mean, I know it as a broadcaster, if I hear it in any sport, it feels like a doomsday. You know, and Adrian Peterson in the NFL, I mean, he did kind of the unthinkable and the unimaginable where, like, they told him it would be a year, and I think he came back in 8 months or something like that, and ran very successfully. So, you know, Doc, to go into that a little bit more, that, you know, it is scary, and Taryn, like you said, when it's a ticking time bomb, the nerves that come from that.
Yeah, so I mean, ACL injuries are pretty common. I think it used to be more of a death sentence. I think we figured out the surgery for the most part. We're really good at the rehab now, thanks to people like Taryn. But it's still not perfect, and the best thing to do is prevent it in the first place, where, you know, you can't make it perfect, and the damage that's done at the time of the exact injury, a lot of it we can't see. You know, visually, you can see some of it on an MRI, but to the damage to the bone underneath the cartilage, but you can't really see the damage to the cartilage. And then, no matter how good of a job we do, people are more prone to getting arthritis down the road and having issues down the road. And so prevention is really more the key. But females do tend to tear their ACL 5 to 10 times more common than males. There's a lot of reasons for it, as Taryn alluded to. They tend to run differently, a little more upright. They tend to jump and cut and pivot differently. They tend to land more knock-kneed when they land from a jump, which is probably exactly what Taryn was talking about when she said that was a ticking time bomb. If you see a young girl and she jumps in the air and her knees go inward, that's a dangerous predisposing factor to tearing the ACL. Women tend to actually fire their hamstrings, the back thigh muscles, differently than they fire the quad muscles, the front ones. So when their knee gets pushed into a position where the ACL might tear, they actually fire the opposite, the quad muscle, when they should be firing the hamstring. So the cool thing about that is most of these things we know, and most of them we can correct. Some of the things you can't correct are things, females have different hormones than males, and so they tend to be a little looser jointed, so that makes them a little more prone. You can't really correct that. Their body habitus is slightly different, a little bit wider pelvis because they have to have babies. So that tends to put their knees in that knock-knee position a little bit more, and makes them a little bit more prone to tearing their ACL. But at least 80% of the things that we see can be preventable, and there's injury prevention programs that, you know, Taryn can talk to, because the physical therapists for the most part and the athletic trainers are the ones who put the athletes through these, but there's programs that can cut the risk of non-contact ACL tears by 50 to 75%. And most are non-contact, as Taryn alluded to. You play sports, there is going to be contact, and some of them we can't prevent, but most we can actually.
And Taryn, to speak on that, you know, preventative care, how important it is to, you know, for you and your job and everything that you do to, I mean, obviously you're going to help them if they're in that position, and if something happens, but to try and keep that from happening, I think, is one of the most beautiful parts of science, and what we have now is to really learn the body so that we can stay away from that.
Yeah, I think it's a common misconception within most communities that physical therapists are just there for post-operative care or injury. And that's, I mean, it's a disservice to the community, because we really are there for prevention. You know, I work with athletes a lot, but it's when they're already injured. And a lot of the conditions can be, they could have been prevented.
Absolutely.
Had we, you know, fixed these mechanical deficiencies and motor planning problems, we could have attacked that from the beginning, and they wouldn't have ended up in this position that they're in now.
So for you, I mean, I know that you kind of got excited with this and you know, the physical therapy side of the human body. You told me when we were talking that you're always moving. So, you know, you're kind of used to, you know, this world and whatnot, but going through an injury and then having the second ACL, and amidst all of this, just having a fascination and an appreciation for the human body and how it works, just bring me into that passion, because behind every good anything in any world, it's you have to have that passion and that true love for it.
Absolutely. I mean, the first injury I had when I was a junior in high school landed me in physical therapy for about 3 months, and I worked with a therapist down in Cortland, Dave Boylan, and he's just absolutely phenomenal. Love him, knew him well. We went to the same church growing up, and he was just great, and he had a great connection with people. He's very sweet, but he's also a pusher, you know.
Sure.
He's got a great personality. He's really born to do it. So, and I liked how busy they were. I knew I couldn't be somewhere where I'd have to sit in one spot and do the same thing over and over again. So I joke and I say I get a new playmate every half hour, because I like moving, and I like complicated cases. They're a lot of fun. I like trying to solve problems. So it really married well with my personality. And then, you know, I had gone through the sports injury, so I think in that regard there was a little bit of comfort there, because I had already gone through it. I was comfortable with athletes. I grew up around athletes where I'm at now, and it's funny to see how all those pieces definitely lined up in order for me to do what I'm doing now and be passionate about it.
And you accepted a challenge that, you know, in the middle of a pandemic, start a business.
Yeah.
So in March 2020, you applied for the PLLC, and then on August 17th, 2020, you got to have your first patient, your first opportunity. So bring me into my Encore and what's so beautiful about this chapter of your life.
Yeah, I mean, it was never my plan to open my own practice. I actually never wanted that. And then, I mean, I was in a really great leadership position at my former employer, and I had a lot of opportunities to learn and help people grow. But at the end of the day, they didn't necessarily want me. They wanted the owner. They wanted that true leader. So I could be a good placeholder, I could be a good mouthpiece, but I couldn't be what they were seeking. And so I always felt like I just wasn't able to connect with them the way I wanted to. And so I thought, well, the only way to get that is to be the owner, to be the true leader. And then I can do what I want to do with these people and give to them what I want to give to them. So it wasn't necessarily about, you know, owning my own thing for my own personal well-being. It's because I feel so passionately about helping people, employees as well as patients, that I wanted to provide an environment in which everybody is flourishing, everybody feels supported and encouraged, and I can lead all those people. So that was kind of the progression to me opening. And now, I mean, I specialize in pelvic floor dysfunction and disorders. So that's fun, because I actually get to meet with a lot of moms who were athletes, and now they want to get back to it. And the medical system has failed our moms in a lot of ways. I mean, we're all about the baby. We're very baby-centric. And then once the baby comes out, mom's pushed to the side, and we're even more so baby-centric. So that passion, and having lived through that myself, I think that has given me the passion to be far more vocal about what I feel like the medical community needs to give to a certain population than perhaps I would have been 8 years ago.
And you know, that's something that I think is incredible. We're talking about a lot of different things today with On the Clock with Doc here, and of course Doc P here with us hanging out, Dr. Marc Pietropaoli, and of course Taryn Bader, and myself, Dan Tortora. That's something that I would have never known if you didn't say it just now. You know, and that's why we do this. That's why we're here, because, you know, the information, and I can say it as a patient here and working with Doc over the years, is there's so much I didn't know, and now I feel like I've learned from being around good people that care about you. I've learned about my body and how to assess different things, and how to prevent, how to get yourself stronger and work through things. And all of this information for the community is a beautiful thing, because I had no idea that it's, baby comes, push mom to the side, and then focus on the baby more. So what can we do, and what are you working to do, in your own practice to really make sure that women are not forgotten in all of this, and that their bodies are taken care of and respected just as much?
Yeah, I mean, we have, and by we I mean the pelvic floor therapists, we've got a bit of a niche on social media. And women, there's this horrible thing that people say, like, you pee your pants after you have a baby. Oh, it's normal, you had a baby. It's common. It's not normal. Stop saying that. Stop telling people that dysfunction is normal. Dysfunction is never normal. So enough with that. And now you'll see the passion come out. But so there's a small niche of us online, and we are very vocal. And I've actually had quite a few moms. They're coming to me because they found me on Facebook. They found me on Instagram. They've told their providers. I just read a study last week. 39% of women who have some kind of pelvic floor dysfunction following birth, they tell their providers about it. But only 25% of the providers told are doing anything about it, meaning writing a script or sending them to somebody who can help them. That's horrible. So 25% of 40. Those are the people who are coming to see me. That's not enough. Not enough at all. So we're trying to normalize the conversation about it, because not everybody wants to talk about peeing or pooping or problems with sex. That's not uncomfortable, or that's uncomfortable for some people. So if we can normalize that conversation and educate the healthcare providers that there are things that are appropriate and helpful for these conditions, I'm hoping that in that regard we can get these people in the door and get them the help that's there, available, and that they deserve to have.
And Doc, when you hear that in that passion, just what you can say about, you worked with Taryn. She actually made you live by your word, because you said you would hire her, and then she came back and asked for that. So you had to live by it. So when you had the opportunity to work with Taryn after having her as a patient, just what that dynamic has been like, and to see the passion and to have the information here on the show today that Taryn's now providing, just what that means to you, because you've kind of seen her through many different stages, and I'm very thankful that you're having this conversation with us, because, again, I wouldn't have this information. A lot of people wouldn't.
Yeah, you can see how things evolve. So, and her passion transferred over to my daughter, so I'll explain that as well. But, I have a question for you, Taryn. So, do you think that the injuries influenced you to go into physical therapy?
Yeah.
And then do you think that having babies influenced you to do the pelvic floor
Absolutely.
work? Yeah, exactly. So it's funny how things work out of sometimes. Well, having a baby's a great thing, but pushing them on the side's not. So
Right.
having things happen to you, you never know where they're going to lead. And I always tell that to the athletes who get injured. You'd be surprised how many who are frequent flyers here, they end up going into some type of health field, whether it be PT, athletic training, physician assistant, surgeons. That girl that you saw on the wall who got back in 3.5 months, she's a cardiologist. So a lot of these things can lead to really good things. And so, I knew Taryn well, and it was great. So I saw her passion, and yeah, absolutely. As soon as we could hire her, when she got done with PT school, we hired her, and then she was here for, how many years were you here for?
2.5.
2.5 years, and then her husband got transferred, which I'm still upset with the person transferred him. But anyway, transferred to Buffalo, and so we lost her for a while. But she came back, and we still worked together when she was at Onondaga PT, and I'm so proud now she's on her own and doing something that she's so passionate about. And it is an amazing thing. So just regarding coming full circle, I have a daughter who's 23, and when she was in 9th grade, she made varsity soccer. She was ecstatic. Unfortunately, a couple games into the season, she had a stress fracture, and that was the end of her season. And she had some other injuries, MCL injuries, and she worked with Taryn, and Taryn's passion transferred over to her, and she just finished. I feel like crying at you for giving her that passion.
She's a doll.
This is the true definition of full circle. For Doc, you help Taryn helps your daughter, and now everybody gets to see that, and you're both successful in your field, and you're both helping the community, and I can only imagine what your daughter's going to do from here too.
Absolutely, yes. So, but yeah, why don't you talk a little bit more about your passion? I would like to hear more about it.
Oh gosh. Well, I think there's a lot of, I'm trying to get a hold of these women while they're pregnant. Because a lot of the research is showing that, common conditions during pregnancy, like low back pain, pelvic girdle pain, those things, we can fix those during the pregnancy. There's less of a likelihood of them following them into the postpartum period. And not for nothing, but it's a lot easier to fix yourself when the baby is inside. Once that baby gets out, you're exhausted, the hormones are insane, and now you have to tote this little one around with you to appointments. So let's get them on the front end, and then hopefully we don't have to see them on the back end. It's very similar to a sports injury in that regard.
Sure.
So I have a birth prep membership, and it's like 4 visits, one-on-one, and I'm helping these women prepare for birth. Included in that is some digital content that they can utilize into the first month postpartum. We're rolling out a postpartum package. You don't even have to see me for that one. It's just a straight up package you're purchasing, and it's all digital content with things you need to know, things you should know, things that are nice to know, and then exercise progressions that are safe for these women. Because at 6 weeks, they're given this clean bill of health. Resume normal activity. That's insane. What if they still have pelvic girdle pain? The dysfunctions they had during pregnancy, they followed them into the postpartum period. I've heard patients tell me that their doctors have said to them, well, you're 6 weeks postpartum, you could go run a marathon. Well, they absolutely cannot, unless they want things potentially coming out, So I think normalizing the conversation about it, understanding that it took you 9 months to get here. It's not going to take you 6 weeks to rebound. That's insane, So I'm trying very hard to get these women during the pregnancy, and then I am seeing some of them do come back and see me postpartum. I have a young mom right now, and she saw me during her pregnancy for SI joint pain. We resolved that. She was good to go. Had her baby, and now she's experiencing some leakage. So now I'm treating her for that. So you get to see the cycle of this progression with them. And then hopefully their next pregnancy, they're healthy and they know what to do. And they don't need me. That's my goal. I don't want them to need me. I want to give them the tools so that they can be independent, managing their own condition. I love seeing them again, and I love seeing the babies, but I want them to be independent. That's the goal.
And I think that's beautiful to hear you say that, because there's a misconception that doctors want you to keep coming back and this and that, where you want there to be, and Doc, we've talked about it too, you want to see someone healthy. You want them to come back to grab a coffee with you, not come back because
cupcakes.
Yeah, bring you cupcakes and show you the babies,
Right,
as they grow up.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like you're making a difference? Do you feel like there's a change, a positive change happening in the information out there to women and what you're actually trying to do preventative care wise? Do you feel like that window is opening a little bit more?
Oh, absolutely. It is so funny the way life is. I remember going to CSM. He foot the bill for that. I went to CSM the first year I was out, which is a combined sections meeting for physical therapy. There's all these new studies, things that, up and coming in physical therapy, and that was 10 years ago. And they had this women's section meeting, and my girlfriend asked me, she says, you want to come sit down on this with me? And I said, no, if I wanted to play with vaginas, I would have become a gynecologist. And here I am.
Yeah.
So it's just, I guess I'm the type of personality where I see a need, and so long as I see that need, I can't not do something about it. I have to attack that. And fortunately, I think there are a lot of us like that. So like I mentioned, there's a huge niche on social media with all this pregnancy, postpartum, pelvic health stuff. So the information is out there. The people aren't getting it from the providers necessarily. They're going to Google, and then they're finding us.
And finding each other is what you both did in kind of this crazy world of healing and getting better and whatnot. So in conclusion, Doc, what can you say about what you appreciate most about how Taryn has maybe affected your life? Because who are we unless we rub off on somebody in a positive way? So how has she rubbed off on you?
Well, I mean, she's set a high standard for who we want to hire here as physical therapist, because she's so skilled. But I just think her passion and her skills are inspiring, and they certainly inspired me to hire her. And they, you know, as I already stated, they inspired my daughter to go into physical therapy. So she's significantly rubbed off on me in many ways.
And Taryn, you know, in the same respect, what can you say about, you know, coming in and having Doc help you the first time, you know, you tore your ACL, and the second time, and then work amongst all of this, and now, you know, have your own practice?
Yeah, I think, you know, I've worked for a few different people now, and I think it's easy to start working for somebody, and then, you know, you get to know them, and you get to know their leadership style. And of the 3 bosses and then, you know, ancillary sub-bosses that I've had, I would say with confidence that you by far were the most capable leader. I remember there was a time that there was a young athlete we had, and on the script you wrote no jumping. And I think it was like a week before his follow-up, and I was doing jumping with him because that was the progression in my mind. He was doing well, but I had forgotten no jumping was on the script. And Doc pulled me back. He never berated me. And he said, "What did you do with so-and-so?" And I said, "XYZ, yeah, jumping." And then he pulled up the script and says, "What does the script say?" And I was like, "No jumping." And I remember him looking at me, and he was kind of like "You're not going to cry, are you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just really mad at myself. Like, that was a stupid decision, and I could have hurt somebody." And he says, "I'm trying to be your coach. I'm not coming down on you, but we got to keep these people safe." And I've never forgotten that, because it meant a lot to me that in a moment where I screwed up and like a blatant mistake, he didn't come down on me. It was more about, see the mistake, don't let it happen again. Kind of, you're better than this. Pull it together. And so I've always remembered that, and that's really how I try to approach my employees when I was in that management position. This is a mistake. People make mistakes, but learn from it. And that's what I tell my kids. You know, we were listening to a podcast, and there was a sweet guy, and he said he was a conductor for an orchestra, and he tells the kids when they make a mistake, they have to throw their hands up in the air and say, "How fascinating." And he has this British accent. And so for a while, I was making my daughter, because she's a bit of a perfectionist, and she was getting down on herself when she made a mistake, and I would say, "Quinn, what do we say?" And she was like, "How fascinating." So I think, long story short, he's a very capable leader, and working for a capable leader is easy and fun. We've all worked for people who are not capable leaders, and that's when you start to lose people. So he's like my picture of what I need to do.
Well, we can already see that you're a very capable leader yourself. Just going into business on your own, I mean, all 3 of us know that. It's not as easy as it looks.
Nope.
And you're already doing great. My question, another question if you don't mind, I'm not trying to take over the show. But,
No.
So how do we get the word out, first of all? And I'm sure that some patients also want to know, because that question always comes up, is this covered by insurance? Is it not covered by insurance?
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 things, you know, how do we get the word out? Is it to OBGYNs? Is it to,
Yeah.
you know?
So I mean, as funny as it sounds, and I don't like to speak poorly, but I'm not getting them from OBGYNs. I'm getting them from urologists.
Great.
There's a urologist out on Water Street with AMP. She's wonderful, Dr. Narens, and she refers to pelvic floor physical therapy. She believes in that. So I'm finding that, you know, these new moms might be complaining about the leakage, and they're being sent to a urologist, and then they're being sent to me.
It'd
Not
be great
that-
to get them ahead of time, right? Preventive.
Yes, that would be great to get them ahead of time. So, I mean, you know how it works. I mean, I accept insurance. The birth prep and the postpartum, those are cash pay services, but it's more the digital content and everything that they're paying for. The hands-on treatment, I can justify that. If there's any dysfunction whatsoever, any pain whatsoever, that's covered by insurance.
Yeah, so absolutely. So it's basically a combination of some cash pay and some insurance. And not to get too down on insurances, but there's a lot of things they don't cover.
Right.
And people will pay thousands and thousands of dollars to help their dog or their cat or, you know, other things. And a lot of times they don't put that money into themselves. And this sounds like an investment where I'm sure it's very reasonably priced that, especially, you know, if you can prevent it, but even after the fact, I mean, anything that you can do to help these ladies, because down the road they might need surgery for this type of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that kind of going off of that, to let people know how they can get in touch with you and what they can do so that maybe they can reach out to you or get to their doctor ahead of time for some of this preventative care. So to share with everybody how they can reach you.
Yeah, so our website is www.myencorept.com. So my Encore, and then PT like physical therapy. And in New York State, you actually can be seen by a physical therapist for 10 visits or 30 days, whichever transpires first, via direct access. So they don't necessarily need a script from their provider. If after that 10 visits or 30 days we think that they need to continue, then we would need a script from the provider, but you don't need it.
I bet you
in
can
most
get a lot done in
cases.
10 visits.
You sure can. Yeah.
That coming from Taryn Bader as well as Dr. P here and myself, Dan Tortora of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora in this extension called On the Clock with Doc, and we are here every single month with Dr. Marc Pietropaoli of Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, and very proud that our spotlight guest today, Taryn Bader of My Encore PT. And Taryn, above all things, thank you for being in this community, thank you for your passion, and thank you for extending outside of yourself and helping people, because what you're doing and the information you gave today could very well save somebody from a heck of a lot of pain in a long road. And so I want to thank you on behalf of everybody out there that sees this.
For sure.
So,